boiler is the one that's out here.
On a hot January day, Review visited the Australian Railway Historical Society in the Perth suburb of Bassendean. An amazing array of 3-foot 6-gauge locomotives are preserved here, carrying builders' plates as diverse as Western Australia's own Midland workshops to those from North British Glasgow. Oil burner UT664, originally built during World War II by North British for the Sudan Railways, is somewhat unique. She had a major rebuild to become a tank engine in 1957. Number 1 Electric, built in 1924 for the State Electricity Commission, was used at East Perth Powerhouse to shunt coal wagons. Here was what we had come to see. S549, just completed after a 10-year restoration, was about to run on the main line again. The locomotive, designed to haul goods trains, was one of 10 built at the Midland workshops in 1947. S549 was in steam again after 20 years. Double heading with Hotham Valley's PM 706, the train heads south through Yarloop to Harvey. The train arrives at Harvey, 139 kilometres south of Perth. We return to Yarloop and discover one of the most unique railway heritage sites left in Australia today. The Yarloop workshops were built in 1920 to maintain the locomotives and rolling stock owned by Miller's Timber and Trading Company. The railway ran 93 kilometres into the Darling Ranges, and over the years, trains hauled out thousands of tonnes of jarrah, Western Australia's finest timber. The workshop once employed 100 men and operated until 1978. The site is now being restored to operating condition. Standing in the huge main workshop building with its belt-driven machinery intact gives you an eerie feeling. It's as if the workers downed tools only yesterday and just walked out. Machinery such as this magnificent horizontal engine dating from 1896 has been fully restored and runs on a regular basis, operated by the dedicated volunteers from the Steamhouse Group. Yarloop is, without a doubt, one of the best examples of our industrial heritage that remains. The smell of grease on the lathes, tinged with the aroma of the giant leather belts that once drove them, evokes images of another era. In August, the review team travelled to South Australia. Surbiton Station, once a thriving changeover point for South Australian and Victorian railway crews, is now virtually abandoned, maintained only by the dedicated efforts of a handful of local enthusiasts. The enormous station is protected by a heritage order, but despite the courageous determination of the volunteers, years of neglect coupled with the lack of sufficient funding have rendered the station a forlorn sight. Just before sunrise, a National Rail super freighter hurtles west across the vast plains, bound for Adelaide. The main line is now standard gauge and will soon carry a lot more traffic as private operators take over. At Tailem Bend, we found a number of locos standing in silence, waiting for their new owners to take them over, the American company, Genesee and Wyoming. It's 67 years since the big Texan, Commissioner Webb, returned to the US after successfully rebuilding the whole South Australian rail system. Now the Yanks are coming back to do it again. Today, the depot has only one remaining staff member, the caretaker, who started here as an apprentice 40 years ago. Broad gauge steam excursions on the main line in South Australia are a thing of the past. With standardization, the once mighty locomotives of the Webb era have become museum pieces. At the Port Dock Museum in Adelaide, the only remaining 500 Mountain class is on display. She once hauled the #1 express passenger service, the Overland, as far as Surbiton, on its 500-kilometre overnight run to Melbourne. The great loco, silenced forever, at least has pride of place here. 705, the only remaining Berkshire, plus many other exhibits, make a visit here well worthwhile. Victor Harbour, a popular tourist destination 45 kilometres south of Adelaide, boasts the only horse-drawn tramway that operates daily anywhere in the world. Victor Harbour is also the destination for the Steam Ranger operation, an 80-kilometre broad-gauge steam excursion. Linking Victor Harbour with the nearby town of Goolwa is the famous Cockle train. This train is extremely popular with tourists who wish to experience a short run behind steam. Here it's hauled by F-Class tank engine 251, built by Perry Engineering in 1922. Steam Ranger's big engine 520 climbs through the Adelaide Hills, heading a special charter to Victor Harbour. Approaching its destination, the train runs right along beside the beach, affording the passengers spectacular views of the Southern Ocean on the edge of the Great Australian Bight. On this charter, 520 is decked out in white ribbons and streamers, bringing a wedding party to Victor Harbour. The bride and groom alight at the station for photographs and then move on to the reception. Late afternoon sees 520 winding back through the beautiful Adelaide Hills. Just on dark, the train arrives back at Mount Barker Station, which has been restored to its former glory. This whole railway is a credit to the members of Steam Ranger, reflecting the many years of dogged persistence and sheer hard work. Once the train comes to a stop, the wedding party and guests must leave the warmth of the cars and step into the cold, wet night. October saw the running of the Rail Discovery Tasmania Tour. On day 7, 97-year-old Dubs number 8, leading ex-TGR locomotives M4 and MA2, depart Burnie, heading west on the famous Emu Bay Railway. This train marks the first time steam has run unassisted to the west coast in 7 years, and the engines slip and slog up the steep grades. During servicing at Ridgeley, the train crosses the new Pierman Bridge, suspended 58 metres above the Pierman River below. Viewed from the wall of the Baston Dam, it's truly a magnificent sight. Looking down the bore of the Argent Tunnel, we see the first steam engines in 33 years to battle their way through. The last was an ASG Garrett in 1964. We are on board the Dubs as the train climbs from the stiff river. Once again, we cross the Pierman Bridge, then the Chester Bridge. The scenery along this route is absolutely spectacular. Driver Sid Young is enjoying handling the 97-year-old loco as we climb the Boko Bank. On Friday, the 3rd of October, the train departs Rosebery with the addition of an 11-class diesel to the consist. Following a dusting of snow overnight, Mount Murchison provides a glorious backdrop. The following day, almost 100 years after the formation of the Emu Bay Railway, a commemorative heritage train leaves Burney Station bound for Goodwood. Stubbs number 8 leads with XTGR CCS 25, followed by a fine collection of restored vintage rolling stock. Tasmanian steam in action is certainly fascinating and differs from any on the mainland. Victoria during winter boasts a large array of steam operations. A visit to Melbourne wouldn't be complete without dropping in on one of Australia's most famous preserved railways, Popping Billy. These immaculate little locos haul trains over the 13 kilometres of track from Belgrave to Lakeside, the current terminus.
Be back in a minute.
No worries, bud.
October 1998 will see the opening of an additional 11 kilometres of track to the original terminus at Gembrook. This new section entailed building new trestle bridges from scratch. Without doubt, a world-class achievement in preserved railways. Heading south to Geelong, we came across a rather dirty-looking freighter on the new standard gauge line, hauled by a BL and a C-class, most of which are now in storage. At Geelong Depot, S-Class diesels are still in service, while R766 is turned after working the scheduled Geelong passenger service, which is steam-hauled sometimes during the school holidays. Both Victoria and New South Wales have some beautiful heritage stations, reflecting the importance of the railway at the turn of the century. Albury Station is a prime example of the grandiose architecture of the period. It's a magnificent building with wonderfully ornate interiors. It's been restored to its former glory by the State Rail Authority of New South Wales. Built in 1882, Albury once catered for thousands of weary travellers changing trains for the break of gauge. The longest platform in Australia is now eerily quiet. But you can almost hear the soldiers of 2 world wars grumbling about the cold as they wait on the platform on their way home to loved ones. Albury today is witnessing a new age of railways, as NR super freighters roll through, bound for destinations all over Australia. Broad gauge steam is certainly alive and well in Victoria. The stable of operational engines consists of 3 R classes, 2 K classes, a D3, J class and a 100-year-old Y class. They will soon be joined by a 4th R class, which will be oil-fired. "707, with a leaking cylinder cock, comes through Little River en route from Bacchus Marsh to Geelong, chartered by the Church of England. As darkness falls on Geelong, the Melbourne Sprinter departs. A few minutes later, 707 departs, huffing and wheezing like some bronchial monster. On Saturday, the 7th of July, Triple Rs arrive at Bacchus Marsh. The day will produce some of the worst weather conditions experienced during 1997, with 60-knot freezing gales and chilling rain interspersed with welcome patches of wintry sunshine. The 3 Rs will make several runs up the Ingliston Bank to Bank Box Loop, and then return tender first to Bacchus Marsh. All 3 hours, a turn for the run back to Melbourne. One last memorable photo run in brilliant winter sunlight was held, and then home. Easter found us at Cowra in the midwest of New South Wales. The old roundhouse is the home of the Lachlan Valley Railway. On Good Friday morning, 5367 is prepared for 4 days of running. This loco is the only standard goods type working in the state. Cowra is unique in that it is a typical country depot of the 50s and 60s, largely untouched by time. Amongst the collection of steam and diesel locos and a substantial array of rolling stock is this CPH rail motor, resplendent in its Tuscan red and yellow livery, seen here leaving Cowra station. The Lachlan Valley Railway is worth a visit, as it illustrates what the railway was like 40 years ago in country New South Wales. In July, ex-South Maitland Railway's number 18 climbs to Robertson in the Southern Highlands. The Cockatoo tourist train, run by 3801 Limited, runs 4 days a week and is well patronised. After servicing at Moss Vale, the Cockatoo returns to the coast, running through the beautiful forests of the Macquarie Pass. On the same day, 2705 was operating the RTM's Loop Line service at Thirlmere. Autumn weather on this day was to be short-lived. On the following weekend at Richmond Vale, number 24 climbs to Pelor, Maine in atrocious conditions. On a cold, clear morning in August, review was in the steel city of Wollongong. At Port Kembla, we found the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum's 5910. She was here for a rather unique trip to Double Head with BHP's Bronzewing up the steeply graded Mount Kembla Colliery branch line. Bronzewing waits in the siding at Unanderra as triple BHP units arrive with a load of coal bound for the blast furnaces. Note the lead engine 103, which used to be a New South Wales 45 class. It looks a little more American after its rebuild by Austrac at Junee. Bronzewing and BHP's D1 diesel make an interesting motive power combination. 5910 and Bronzewing slog it out as they climb the Mount Kembla Colliery branch. Diesel Loco D1, built in the UK and assembled here by Commonwealth Engineering, entered service in 1950 and became Australia's very first mainline diesel locomotive. D1 takes the train back down the hill. The two steamers leave this pretty little valley located only a few kilometres from a major industrial city. A few startled cows take to the hills until the interlopers have gone. .3801, arguably Australia's most famous steam locomotive. Following a decade of operation since the locomotive had her last rebuild, she was to be joined by another sister in one of the most eagerly awaited steam events in the state. Late October saw 3830, the last of the famous class, nearing completion after a 5-year restoration program carried out by the Powerhouse Museum and 3801 Limited. The restoration took place in the large erecting shop of the old Everleigh workshops in Sydney. On the 3rd of November, 3830 ran a trip around the Sydney suburban system. A huge collision involving two coal trains occurred on the morning of October 23rd at Beresfield Station in the Hunter Valley. The day before, 3830 was due at the Hunter Valley Training Company in Maitland. Both lines were blocked. Luckily, by lunchtime the following day, one line was open and 3830 was able to get through. Gleaming 38 backs into the Hunter Valley Training Company's siding at East Greeter in preparation for a ceremony the next day. The HVTC carried out some of the boiler and tender work for the project. The next day saw double green 38s run from Maitland to Sydney, a spectacular sight after nearly 20 years. Of all the main lines in Australia, the heaviest and most varied trains can be found in the lower Hunter region of New South Wales. 900s head giant coal trains to the coal loader at Port Waratah, their load bound for Asia. Here, double NRs haul a Brisbane-bound super freighter. Some of these trains are the longest in the country. Maitland is the junction for the North Coast and Northwest lines, which carry all the coal traffic from as far away as Gunnedah, some 240 kilometres distant. This particular spot would have to be one of the best train watching spots in the country. On Sunday, the 23rd of August, a rather special diesel haul train came through. Alco's 4520 and 4424 on a day trip to Dungog and the Barrington Tops National Park. On a warm morning in March, the only working Garratt in Australia, number 1009, arrives at Grantchester on a Sun Steam special to Toowoomba. The Westlander, Brisbane-bound from Charleville, is one of several long-distance passenger trains operated by Queensland Railways. A wheat train waits to cross the special at the beautiful mountain station of Spring Bluff. Spring Bluff has won many garden awards and is a regular tourist stop for anyone passing through. "1009, built by Bayer Peacock in Manchester, England in 1950, was completely restored in 1995 by Queensland Rail. A trip up the Darling Downs behind steam is quite an experience, especially with this magnificent garret up front. Late afternoon sun filters through the trees at Spring Bluff as 1009 eases her train back down the steep grades to the rich farmlands of the Brisbane Valley. Back on the double track, 1009 pours on the power for a quick trip back to Brisbane. A last stop for water at Grantchester on a balmy evening ends a perfect day's outing.